Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of As the Walker Turns. My name is Mandy, and I am very happy to be joined today by Rachel Keller. Rachel and I know each other through the industry, and she is the Vice President of Sales for, it's pronounced Catalyst Senior Living Solutions, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and she's also the host of something called Female Fridays. And so, Rachel, I'm just going to let you kind of talk about what that is and how you're connected to the industry.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Mandy, thank you so much for having me. And the tables have turned because I got to
Yes,
interview you. So now I'm excited to be on the other side of the mic and thank you for having me.
sure.
But Female Fridays is a podcast that highlights women in the senior living industry. And the whole goal behind the show is to get to know the woman behind the title. So I want listeners to hear themselves or see themselves in these stories and look at these women and say, oh my gosh, they're so successful now in what they do, but it wasn't easy getting there. It wasn't perfect. And these women made mistakes, and yet here they are today. And so, in hearing that, the ultimate goal is that more women will be encouraged to use their influence, potential rise in leadership positions, and then ultimately influence our industry.
Wonderful. And I appreciate that so much, Rachel, because this is very much a woman dominated industry.
Hmm.
I mean, of course, men are in the industry as well, but if you go into a community, you're going to see kind of like the residents, you're going to see more females than you are males.
Yep.
So I think it's important for us to be able to represent that and what that means, from a family member's perspective, walking, into a community. It's going to look maybe a little different than other businesses.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you, but I was surprised when I got into this industry and saw how many women were leading. I was surprised in the best way.
Yeah, same with me. When I started working at my first community, I was just kind of looking around, and I think we had maybe one in maintenance, and maybe another guy in maybe the kitchen. I was just like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. So Rachel, talk to me about, like, since you've talked to so many women in the industry, many probably more
Hmm.
than I have, and some of their stories. What are some, like, overreaching, maybe the word would be, similarities or stories, and how they got to the industry, or how you even got into the industry?
Yeah, well, to answer the question about how I got into the industry and what I hear, it's often the same, which is by accident,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
And mine is similar. So I actually started out in broadcast journalism. And from the time I was 16 years old, I had a goal of that I wanted to be a national talk show host.
Oh,
And yes, I was a crazy 16-year-old and came up with a plan and followed the plan to a T. I bet you are guessing I am type A. Yes, I am.
yeah. I think you like a good checklist.
Yeah. So I went to Mizzou, and Mizzou is known for having the best broadcast journalism program in the nation. So I'm so excited. I'm loving all my classes. I get to the end of my senior year, and the last class was the capstone class taught by the dean of the journalism school. So I'm pumped. I'm like, all right, this is the most important thing he thinks I need to know before I graduate. And the entire semester was on the journalism of outrage and how you can
Oh,
anger people every day with your storytelling.
oh,
Yeah,
that's far. Okay, that's heavy. Okay.
it's heavy and it is necessary to tell stories that outrage people. There's definitely a time and a place. However, I wanted to be a national talk show host, and my whole goal
Right.
was to spread positive stories. So I had a crisis of faith at 22, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Which is how, through accident, through connections, I ended up in senior living, but and now still carrying out that goal through these stories I tell with women.
Wow, how interesting. Okay, so have you found from your journalism background that maybe that outrage is amplified with some of the media coverage that we face as senior living?
Yeah. So one of the things that they teach you in school is that if it bleeds, it leads.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's really important for consumers to, and especially families to keep in mind. And even in senior living, you may only be hearing the negative stories that happen once in a blue moon. And you're not always hearing the incredible stories that are happening every single day, every hour. at a
Right.
senior living community because it is not dramatic. It doesn't have that shock factor where you feel outraged after hearing it. You may not want to hear about how the senior living community helped a local dog shelter by all the residents knitting them new
Right.
blankets, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
that's not as sexy. And
Sure.
so I think that's really important for families to know is that when we think about the image, just keep in mind that you're not always hearing the incredible stories.
Do you think, why do you think senior living is a target? Is it just an easy demographic that it just pulls on the heartstrings for people, in that age group, more vulnerable population?
Yeah. So another thing that you learn in broadcast is that each segment of a newscast has about 30 minutes on average. And you
Mhm.
have different blocks. So a block is like, hey, this is if it bleeds, it leads. It's the very first story I hear. And then you have the D block, which is the very end of the segment. And oftentimes, sometimes the best times, that's where we do hear about the senior stories, which is at the very end, and they are sharing the heartwarming stories. But I think it just goes back to follow the money, and where does the money lead you? It's the more outrageous type of stories that are going to get more viewers because that drives revenue. And it's not necessarily any person or any industry. That's just kind of how it is in general. And those positive stories are out there, but they may not get that very first minute of attention that the negative stories get.
Interesting. Okay, so it's calculated as far as okay, well, I should say calculated. It's planned. It's pre-planned as far as how they're going to drive those stories, that narrative, and then ultimately how they're going to make money off of it.
I mean, they're thinking about what is going to be the most popular story that people are going to want to pay attention to. And so, oftentimes, I mean, think of any story that you listen to, the more drama, the
Mhm.
plot twist, like you want to hear those stories. So, I don't want to make it sound like anyone's trying to be malicious. And there, like I said, there is a time and place for sharing the harder parts of what goes on. It's just something for viewers to be paying attention to and kind of taking things with a grain of salt that hey, I might not be hearing all the positive things.
Okay, and that's applicable for any,
Anybody.
any
Yeah.
industry, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's really very interesting to hear that perspective from someone that has that background. So, going along that line of thought, what do you think some of the biggest misunderstandings or misperceptions about senior living are?
Yeah. Well, I will go off of what I hear my dad say all the time, which he tells me, I would rather drive into a tornado than live in senior living. And I'm like,
Wow.
that is awful. And I think that that just shows there's a huge misconception about what it means to be in senior living. And I will say, Mandy, I have been in some of your communities and I'm like, where do I sign? Like, I wish my life looked like this right now. But
Yeah.
it's just this like this gap between what we've thought of in the past versus the women who are at the helm, who are creating these incredible experiences in a place that people would love to go be a part of. And it's almost like we just need the general public to catch up to that point.
And do you think that some of those shifts are predominantly because it's female led, or do you think it's just the evolution of the industry, or maybe all of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I was recently at a senior living conference and they were talking about a massive study that Google conducted. And the study, I think it was Project Aristotle, but it was understanding what makes the best traits for leaders in an organization. So, I'm curious what you think they would be, and then I'll tell you. Do you have any
Oh,
guesses?
okay. So come up with a couple of them. I
Yeah,
would
personality
say
traits.
for good leadership, I would hope it would be transparency.
Well, that's a good one.
Authenticity would be a good
Hmm.
one. Do what you say you're going to do. Is that enough?
No, those are good. Those are really good.
Okay.
Unfortunately, those did make the list, but I think
Oh,
those are
all
all great traits.
right.
So, the top four personality traits found in the best leaders, according to Google. Number one, empathy.
Mm,
Number
yes.
two, curiosity, which is why I think all journalists can totally get into senior living.
Sure. Sure.
Number three, emotional intelligence.
Uh huh.
And number four, reflective thinking.
Mm.
Now, think about women in general. A lot of women embody these traits. We tend to be very empathetic. We have a high degree of emotional intelligence. We are forward thinkers, but we also can be reflective thinkers as well. And this can be traits for men or women. So I don't want to say this
Sure.
is only women.
Sure, sure.
But when we think about, does it make a difference? I would argue yes, that women bring something unique to the table and the type of way that we lead that is very special.
Interesting. So if I, as a family member are looking at a community, would you take into account then maybe some of those qualities in the executive director or the director of nursing? Like I need to feel that connection with that human when making that decision.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to take a look, and especially for senior living operators, a lot of times they have on their website who is on the executive team. And so
Right.
you can see what types of individuals make up this company. Maybe it's important to you to have women in leadership, maybe it's not. But I know if I were looking for my own parent, it would be important to me that there were women who were leading on the leadership team. It didn't have to be entirely women, but at least half, if not more, would be important to
Sure.
me.
Okay, interesting. So, Rachel, I know you've taught, like we mentioned this before, that you've spoken from everyone from like CEOs to caregivers
Hmm.
to sales to, I don't know if you talked to anyone in building ops yet, but that could be fun.
Yeah.
What are some of the stories that have really like resonated with you or stuck with you?
Yeah. So one thing I will say is that our grandmothers have shaped us. So
Mm,
when you think about the women who are leading in senior living, I hear time and time again in these interviews that the reason why these women are so passionate is because their grandmother led the way for them. And
really?
yes, hmm
Not so
so
much the mothers, but the grandmothers.
grandmothers. So Cornel Vacherka, who is the VP at Merrill Gardens, specifically talked about how her grandma shaped her and her values, and now she is leading that type of culture and honestly taking the values that her grandma told her and bringing that to her sales team. And I
Oh,
hear that a
interesting.
lot.
Wow. Okay, I'd never put that together. That's such an interesting set of values. I mean, definitely multi-generational here, right? Like you're skipping back
Mhm.
one or two generations here, and then I guess we're seeing the fruits of those labors in the communities now. Wow. I love that.
Absolutely. I think
Wow.
some other common themes that I've heard just from women in leadership in general is that we don't all have it figured out, right? And
That's a secret.
yeah, I mean, Mandy, you have it figured out.
Sure. Okay. This is easy.
I don't have it figured out. And actually, that was something I don't know if our listeners have heard of 360 reviews, but it's basically where everyone on your team has to give feedback, good or
Right.
bad. So I had to
Right.
do that when I became an exec.
Oh,
And my team actually gave me feedback that sometimes I basically act like I know everything, even if I don't. And I mean, I can own it. I've worked on it. But what I think is really important is that oftentimes as women, we feel like we have to have every single answer. And the truth is that no, you don't, but you do have to be willing to step outside of your comfort zone, trust your gut, go for something new, and lean on your skill set to get you there. That has been a common story in my interviews.
I love that. I completely agree with that. It's like I time and time again you'll run into a you think after 20 something years in the business you've heard it all, but no, the surprises keep coming. And it's sometimes yeah, they look to you for the answers or maybe the ultimate decision, but you have to lean on your teams and also lean in on your values as a human being and also whatever your company stands for. And I think
Hmm.
generally you'll figure it out in the end, but also being vulnerable with your team to just say, yeah, I don't know, I need to sleep on this or I need to go do some research. Hold, I'll get back to you, I promise, but I just don't know where to go right now. And I think that's okay to say that.
Absolutely. And even for families listening to to this conversation right now, if you're talking about senior living and the person you're talking to says, oh, you know what, let me find out and come back to you. See that as a positive too. That person is wanting to make sure you get the right information. They're trusting on their team. Like that's a great sign to me now.
I think that's very powerful, especially from a salesperson to be vulnerable and say, if there's some kind of special request or something,
Yeah.
like to say I don't know is honestly, I think, more authentic and powerful than saying just giving you the answer you want to hear. But
Yeah.
definitely follow up and make sure that you get some closure on that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what you talked about is what's important to you as a leader. Follow through, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
So let's say that, you get to a point in your life, and I'm already there. My mom is in a memory care community, and we've talked about that openly on the podcast. But advice would you give to someone who's really nervous, or maybe like your dad was saying, he'd rather drive into a tornado? How do you bridge that gap between I'd rather die or live in a wonderful place? Like, how would you even approach that?
What's so funny is knowing my dad, he is Mr. Social. He would love and thrive being in a senior
Mhm.
living community. What I would say, I always come back to this example and I find it so powerful. Do you know that the loneliness epidemic and feeling lonely is as deadly as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day?
Yeah, I heard that. It's like a pack. I don't know how many cigarettes in a pack, but it was at least a pack a day. And was like, that is terrifying. And we don't talk about that enough.
It
And
is
as a
terrifying.
society, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what I would say to answer your question is maybe you are scared about what change looks like, but following the footsteps of these women who I've interviewed and be willing to acknowledge the fact that, hey, this is an emotional decision. This is a huge decision. It's going to be a change, but I can trust my intuition as a woman because a lot of times it's the adult daughter making this decision and know that I've had great conversations and I can navigate this change. And the women who are in charge are bringing the best care. They're bringing the best tech. They're investing in their teams to make the best experience for my mom or dad. And they will, because of that, benefit from an incredible culture. And what's the other option? The other option is I stay home. I don't have to go through this uncomfortable change, yes, but
Mhm.
I can't be giving them 24/7 care. That's going to lead to burnout as an adult child. And the lonelier they are, not having that support is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Which one would you rather have for your parent?
Right. Right. And we saw it during COVID, with everyone being locked up and the amount of depression that the residents were experiencing. These were even in communities that obviously we were operating during COVID. That's a whole nother podcast. But
Yeah,
to have them cut off from their loved ones was so devastating for people that are running these communities because we're just so used to it being like one big, village or like like anything else you would have in your life, and we just saw that social isolation that was forced on us at the time just create such depression and turmoil with those residents. It was very hard. So I'm super grateful that we're back to you know seeing children and pets and everyone running around.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And I love how dog friendly you are. That's a side note. I love dogs.
We also take cats too.
And
But
cats,
yes,
yes.
we have lots of furry friends that run around those buildings for sure.
Oh,
Wow. So Rachel, if you could leave families with one piece of advice, what would that be about the industry, or if they're looking to make this decision, like what like I don't know, what words of encouragement could you provide?
absolutely. I would just say that one, my heart goes out to anybody who is in this process because I haven't been through it myself, but being in the industry, know enough to know that is a hard decision and it is emotional. But my advice would be, if I'm giving it from the female's perspective, trust your gut, trust your intuition, and know that growth happens outside of your comfort zone. So, is moving to senior living a little bit outside your comfort zone? Yes, maybe, but most of the time, wonderful things happen when you do something that pushes you outside of your comfort zone. And
Mm,
trust that the women in charge have your back for sure.
I love that. That's a great way to end this conversation. Rachel, is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience or anybody that needs help here?
Thank you for letting me spend 30 minutes with you. I appreciate it. And if anybody found this encouraging and wants to learn more about the women who are leading this industry, you're welcome to come hang out with me on the Female Fridays podcast.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, we'll probably put a link there so everyone can enjoy it. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing what you have in store for this industry. It's always fun to see you, and we do love a good conference when we see each other.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mandy.
All right, you take care.